Shalom, balance, paradise, or back in the lab, and more feminine energy. I have with me none other than Lisa Marie, and correct me if I'm wrong with your pronunciation of your last name, Lozano?
Hey, you said people wrong.
Pardon?
I said it's right. Usually people say it wrong.
Excellent. I got it. I got it. Um, Former pro boxer,
Yes,
amateur kickboxer,
correct,
former MMA gym owner,
correct.
mother,
Yes,
and everything else in between. Welcome.
yeah.
So thank you very much for honoring the broadcast. We just really want to just get delved in. We're already in the DeLorean, so we're gonna go way back in time. We're gonna go back to your early years growing up in Dallas. What was it like? Paint that picture. Paint the picture. Were we growing up in the, without giving your age away,
Yeah,
mademoiselle?
we don't want to give my age away.
Exactly, exactly.
I want to stay young, forever
Yes,
21.
that's it. I know the mantra. I know the mantra. So growing up in your early teens, I guess that was the 90s, maybe?
mm, I guess you could
Yeah.
say that.
Okay. So give us a flavor. What was it like growing up? And what kind of things were you into?
Well, growing up, I'm originally from West Texas. It's a small little town called Big Spring. And growing up there, I had, like, I think like every fighter has that story. I grew up in a single household family, bad, kind of thing. And that was me, and I was into sports. I played volleyball, ran track, basketball, all that. And my brother actually, he was a boxer growing up, and my father was a big time boxing fan, and so was my mom.
Hmm.
And so growing up, that's what I was always around, and I always wanted to follow my brother's footsteps. I wanted to be a boxer. He did very, very well as an amateur boxer. At that time, I didn't box only because girls didn't really box.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I mean, for women to enter combat sports, it is for a lot of people frowned upon, and a lot of people don't take it serious, kind of thing. So, as you say, your family was clearly entrenched within the sport. Um,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
was what was it like for your peers and stuff when you started to say, "Look, I'm kind of thinking of, following my brother's footsteps and going down the boxing route"?
Well, it's funny because everybody, like all my, friends and stuff, when I tell them that, I'm boxing now, and I thought about boxing, they all said, I can see that. Like I said, I grew up in a rough neighborhood. My parents were really, really rough. And it was one of those, I had a dad like, hey, if somebody's picking on you, you're going to fight back. And if you're not, I'm going to whoop your ass. So you better make sure you know how to fight. So it was like one of those things. So like all my friends growing up, they knew that it wasn't a surprise to them for me to
Okay.
be boxing,
That's
to
good.
be honest.
So no major shocks, no major shocks when you came. Okay, so what was it like when you got your first black eye?
You know what? I'm gonna be honest. I've never gotten a black eye.
Okay,
Yes,
that's that's very surprising. I expect that to be one of the one of the first things you'd potentially get. Doing.
I don't bruise easily on my face for some reason. Now I get bruises on my body,
Mhm.
but as far as my face, thank goodness, I never received a black eye where it was real bad. I probably got like a little bruise
Mhm.
or whatever, just because maybe because I fought like at two weight classes above me. But other than that, I've never had a black eye.
Touch wood, as they
Surprisingly.
say.
Surprisingly. Now I got
Def
black eyes. I got black eyes when I wasn't in the ring. I don't know. I guess that counts for something.
well, there's no there's no gloves and it's
Yeah,
different. Yeah, exactly, exactly. I take it you're not talking sparring, we're talking extracurricular activities.
right.
Yes.
Extracurricular activities.
Definitely. Okay, so let's progress on a little bit more. So we got into we're thinking of doing the boxing and we're now training and we're doing, um, we're doing it now. How did all of that how did you, was it a full-time thing? Was you doing it part-time? Like how did that all
No,
work?
to be honest, I started off as a kickboxer, as an amateur kickboxer, and I did that for 3 years. And how I got into it, this is when I used to be married. I did it just to just to lose weight. And I happened to miss class one day. And next thing you know, I was told that I was going to be in a kickboxing fight. I was unaware of how all that worked. So I was
Hmm.
just like, okay. I wound up getting my ass kicked on my first amateur kickboxing fight, but then I wind up knocking her out also by accident. It's not something that
You
that I
just
did on purpose or I trained. It just so happened I wound up kicking her and it was over. And
a head
it
kick
was like
knockout?
one of those wild punches and you knock somebody out. And I'm going to be honest. And it kind of scared me. Kickboxing for me was like, man, that's something I loved, but I hated and I didn't want to do anymore.
Was that due to the after effects, as you say, after knocking someone out potentially, or was it the grueling training per se?
Yeah, the grueling training is because I trained with an old school kickboxer, a throwback, from like Troy Dorsey days. His name
Wow.
was Steve Gowen, and he used to fight everyone. Like he fought Troy Dorsey. So he had that old school throwback training,
Hmm.
and I guess he thought that I was so tough that I could fight anyone, and he would throw me against, like back. You go 100%, and it doesn't matter if you were a girl sparring a guy, you're going 100%. And there was times that I would cry because I didn't want to spar because there was nothing but guys. Girls
Yeah.
don't get to have the luxury of sparring other women. You wind up sparring other guys,
Hmm.
and that's what happened with me. I didn't have no women sparring when I was kickboxing, and I hated it to be honest. But it brought the toughness out of me, which that was able to transpose into boxing.
Hmm.
And I think I was too tough for my own good because of my mentality when I used to kickbox. And I thought that I could fight anybody during my boxing career because I thought I was just, oh, no kicks. Okay, all I have to worry about is hands.
This is
Man,
it.
but they're two different sports,
Yeah.
and you have to.
Judging distance is very different. As you say, you're only looking at two limbs rather than,
Or
four. If it's Muay Thai, obviously, we've got some
yeah,
elbows in there as well and some knees. So yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine that really steel sharpened steel, and it created an excellent foundation, as you say, um, to move into a similar but different sport, as you say, with distance management, etc. Um, how did you find that transition? I know, as you've alluded to, you was too hard for your own damn good kind of thing. But
yeah.
transition, like, what was that like?
It was hard to be honest. After I stopped kickboxing, I wound up tearing my meniscus and I didn't want to have surgery. So I'm like, I'm done. But we wind up moving from Dallas to Fort Worth. And there, my son got into boxing. And so we were there sparring, or he started boxing, and I was just there to work out again, workouts. And I started sparring a lot of the national champions, amateur national champions there, state champions.
Hmm.
And I was just like, man, I actually love boxing more than I did kickboxing. And so when I would spar, my first sparring session, it was so hard because, as an amateur boxer, a lot of those kids, it's more on point sparring. So
Yes.
they're just like coming at you like bees, like da 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 da
Yep.
da.
Yep.
And I'm just like, whoa, hold up, wait a minute. And I wanted to kick, and I wound up kicking my first sparring session because I needed her to get off me.
Mm,
And so I learned to stop kicking, and I was getting my ass kicked during sparring sessions, and I was training for like maybe 2 years in boxing,
yeah.
and I remember I went to my son went to a tournament, and there was a matchmaker there, and I was helping one of the coaches, coach my son, and he thought that I was very knowledgeable. And so he asked if I ever fought, and I said, well, in kickboxing, not in boxing. So he asked me, would I be interested in boxing? And I was like, yeah, sure. But that was 2 years goes by because I'm like, I'm not ready right now. Give me time, And I had, a few amateur boxing fights.
Hmm.
And then he came back and said, hey, are you ready for a fight? And I was like, sure. But one thing about boxing that people don't realize, if you don't have a promoter or you don't have someone behind you,
Yeah.
they're not going to take care of you, and they're going to feed you to the wolves.
Hmm.
And that's exactly what happened. They were trying to find an opponent, which was me, for a girl who was she had like 80 amateur fights. She was
80.
80, yeah. And she was 3-0 at the time. And so finally I was like, I couldn't find a fight. So I was like, yeah, I'll fight again. I was too
Yeah.
tough for my own good. And we wound up fighting, and I thought, as well as everyone else thought, that I won. Like I dropped her, I put the pressure on her, but
Hmm.
because when you're fighting in someone's hometown,
Of course.
and if the promoter's promoting this person,
Hmm.
yeah, that's what happens. I wound up losing by a split, and she wound up going to the hospital that night. And I remember her dad asking me, have I ever fought before? And I said, yeah, I've fought before. It's just, I just had a great trainer.
Hmm.
And I
And you were
had,
naturally talented, clearly.
yeah, I just, it just came natural well, I'm not going to say it came natural for me, but I just worked hard. And we wind up meeting later on, my pro debut. We wind up meeting maybe like 4 or 5 fights later, and I wind up beating her. So, and clearly I
Officially.
wind up,
Officially
yeah,
this time.
yeah. And so, yeah, but after my first fight and when I lost, I knew in my heart that I won, but I was so hungry for it. Like,
Mm.
man, when I said I fell in love with boxing, I literally fell in love with boxing. Everything about it, I loved. And I wanted to continue. And I did for 10 years. I fought 10 years, going into it. And man, I had probably the best time of my life. I met a lot of people.
Hmm.
But boxing is very political. And if you don't have the right people behind you,
Yes.
you could wind up being an opponent, or no matter if you win, you're still going to lose because you don't have someone backing you up.
As you say, I think that's one
Yeah,
of
I've learned
the
a lot.
yeah, yeah, I could definitely, and that's the most important thing. It's the journey. It's not
Yeah,
sometimes about the destination. Ultimately, you want to plan the destination, but it's the journey, and it's
yeah,
learning and growing throughout that journey, and becoming a trustfully a better person each day,
yeah.
each month, each week, etc. Um, Clearly, I mean, from the outside looking in, I mean, you've got a lot more experience and knowledge in this area, but it does seem as you say about the politics and not having the golden promoters behind you, that if you don't have that, you don't get the potential of big fights, you're not definitely not going to get a title.
No.
um it Do you see that changing? Because I mean, I'm seeing more fights taking place that should be taking place at the right kind of time rather than waiting lots of years, but I'm still kind of seeing the four main people just controlling everything and dictating all of these matches.
Well, to be honest, if I were to give anybody advice, because you have Top Rank, you have De La Hoya, you got, those guys who
Hmm.
are what, they look for people who need the money, you know,
Hmm.
they look for people who, they want to fight because it's on a big card and, or whatever. I would say don't do it. It's not worth it. If this is something like you really want to do and make this a career, and if you don't have like the backing I keep talking about, make sure that you pick your own fights. Be smart about it. I know there's a lot of young fighters out there in their early 20s, and they just want to go out there. They think about Mayweather or whatnot, but you really got to be smart about it and find the right people. Just because you got people behind you don't mean they're the right people, but you got to find people that you trust. And right now, like you said, it's a lot of like the same type of fighters that are fighting out there.
Hmm.
But if you're, I just say, be careful. Be careful. Not every opportunity is opportunity.
Well, definitely, definitely. I mean, just to give some context, what for someone making a pro debut, what kind of compensation can a fighter expect, minimum to potential maximum?
Again, it all depends. If you're someone with a huge amateur background
Hmm.
and you've been to the Olympics or whatnot, you're gonna have a good payday. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna have a really good payday on your first fight. Anyone can make anywhere from 8 to 10,000 with that type of background, knowing
Oh.
that they see the potential in you
Hmm.
and you have the right promoter behind you, you can make that kind of money. But if you don't have a very long boxing career, like amateur career or anything, and you don't have anyone backing you, and or you don't have any amateur boxing fights, even if you had maybe 15 or 12, you're not going to have a good payday. You're going to probably have a $1,200 payday, $800 payday, and it's worse for females. Really, really bad for females, for
Still,
female
or
fighters.
is it?
Yes, yes, it really is. I remember I used to train this one girl. She was getting ready for a title fight, a 10-round title fight, and they only gave her $5,000.
Wow.
5,000, and it's really sad.
It
But then,
is.
but then again, there's not a lot of skillful. I don't want to say. I don't want to put my foot in my mouth. There are skillful female boxers out there that are very well known. You have Clarissa Shields.
Hmm.
She is the name of female boxing right now. But you also have a lot of other female boxers out there, like Katie Taylor. She's amazing, and she's probably the first female to reach $1 million for a fight. But if
Is
you
that
got someone,
is
yeah,
that due to, as you say, her having the right people behind her and having that pedigree, amateur boxing wise, etc., or is she just an exciting fighter and people want to see her?
no, because she's not in the U.S. A lot of U.S. fighter in the U.S. They are considered the good old boys. It's predominantly um, men who fight, and they don't want to see women fight. And Katie Taylor, she's from Ireland. So a lot of other countries like the UK, Canada,
Hmm.
Ireland, Australia, they are big on female fighters, and they will back them. That their own country will back them up, and that's why a lot of female fighters from a different country, even Mexico, just people, different countries, they back the female fighters so much, but not here in the US. They don't. They don't give female fighters any TV time, or anything, or they don't give them the money, nothing. But if you go to a different country, they're gonna pay you very, very well, and they're gonna take care of you.
What do you put that down to? The US market specifically?
I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
Again, like I said, it's the good old boys here in the US, and we haven't had like a really good female fighter in a very long time. You had like um, uh, Layla Ali, who was
Hmm.
Muhammad Ali's daughter. Everyone knows that. And you had Ann Wolf. She was a beast.
Oh
You
yeah.
had I love Ann Wolf. And there was so many other Lucia Riker. She was another one. Those were the throwback female fighters. And here we are, maybe like 2 decades
Yeah,
later.
exactly.
Yeah, we here we are decades later, and we haven't found like a great female fighter until Clarissa Shield came out, and she had to really speak her mind for people to really listen to her. She's talented. She had a big, amateur background. She's a two-time Olympian. So yeah, I don't understand it. A lot of people don't think females can fight, and they don't want to see it. Even if they're great, they still don't consider female fighters great, and they don't want to see it. And I'm hoping that changes.
Do you
So
well, I guess, I mean, I'll answer the question. It's down to the people in the position who put the fights on, number one,
yeah,
and the TV, the ESPNs, or if it's on a pay-per-view, it's down to them. If
yeah,
they put the cards together, create this is going to be the norm now. Let's say moving forward in 2021, we're going to have 50 pay-per-views, and 30 of them we're going to have headlining with women. If that became the norm, everyone would expect. They're not going to, oh, I'm not going to tune into that because there's women fighting. They
right.
would expect to see it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's like Dana White. He didn't want any MMA fighters until Ronda Rousey came, and she made it big. And it just goes to show you that if, like you said, if the promoter puts really, go behind the female fighter, they can be just as major as the male, counterparts. Like, you have Ronda Rousey, who was headlining at the time that it was never, ever known for a female MMA fighter to headline a fight.
Exactly.
So you got Amanda Nunes now. You got a
Hmm.
lot of females in the MMA and the UFC headlining a lot of the fights, and it's because Dana White believed Ronda Rousey, and then she made him a believer in female MMA fighters. If they had the same backing as in boxing, it can potentially happen. But the thing is, they in boxing, females don't sell tickets, and if you can't sell seats, you will never, be a main card, or you won't be the main events, or you won't get paid if you're not selling seats. That's how it works. You got to sell the seats. You got to sell tickets.
Yes, which is totally understandable. It's a business. It's sports entertainment, isn't it? And again, I think it comes back to what's that film, the saying in that Kevin Costner film, build it and they will come.
They would come. Yeah. Yeah.
So they're missing out on a huge untapped market. I mean, women, I would imagine, still purchase and are interested in boxing, clearly, as per this conversation. Um, so just think if you had women actually headlining cards, or warm women fighters, then you're going to have the casual now tuning in and thinking, oh, well, it's not just men I can watch. I can actually see, you know, two women go at it. Actually, tell me this, ratio-wise, is there many knockouts within women's boxing?
Well, no, not really. Well, one, I'll tell you about this. In women's boxing, we only go 2 minutes. Men go 3 minutes.
Hmm.
And women don't fight no more than 10 rounds. So a championship fight is only 10 rounds. So we don't do the 12 rounds, only 10 rounds, eight to 10 for a championship fight. And we only fight for 2 minutes. Now, there are some female fighters, boxers that are doing the 3 minutes. And when the 3 minutes that I've seen, there has been knockouts. So if that could change, you'll see a lot of the knockouts even in men after the 2 minute mark.
Mm.
I
Well,
can't, I can't say, I can't, I can't say, women will automatically start knocking out, their opponents after 2 minutes if they were to go 3 minutes or whatnot. But, it's like an amateur boxing fight. for women in pro boxing. You got to get as much points in those
Yes.
2 minute marks. And so that is probably why you don't see any knockouts, because you're just in there fighting. You don't have time to,
Yeah.
establish the jab, see
Yeah.
how she's fighting. Okay, 1 minute's already passed, and you got one more minute left to sway the judges. So what are you going to do? You're just going to be out there and start
Of
fighting, just
course.
throw.
Show what you've got there in essence. And I think based upon what you're saying, it seems that it's stacked. The odds are clearly stacked against you because I mean, why on earth in 2020 would women be going too many rounds if men are doing? I mean, I mean, let's look at the outcry of how things are with this social justice kind of stuff that's going on.
Right.
Surely people should be jumping on this and saying, wait a minute, you've got women boxers and they're competing, and number one, they're not getting paid the same, and number two, they're only doing too many rounds. What happened to equality? Didn't
Yeah.
we burn bras and do all this kind of stuff to, so we could be treated equally, especially within sports?
Right. Right. But it's not going to happen. Like I said, until a promoter, hell, I'm not a Don King fan, but I swear to you, he'll probably promote the hell out of a female fighter knowing he can get some money. So, maybe they need to get with Don King. I don't know. But if you have Oscar De La Hoya, he has a female fighter right now. God, I just literally, her name just, she's from Houston, Texas, and I really hate that I forgot her name. Oscar De La Hoya promotes her, but she was undefeated. She was in the Olympics. She fought in the Olympics as well, and she's doing good right now. There's a few female boxers that are making a name for themselves. They're not on Clarissa Shields' level as far as her popularity, but they're out there.
Clarissa's doing the damn thing, and
She is doing the damn thing. Her name is Marlene Esparza.
oh,
She's
I've
from
heard of her. Yes.
Yeah, she's from Houston, Texas, and she is signed with Golden Boy.
Okay, so that's definitely a name to look at. I mean, justly people are, minds might open up and, a bright spark might, take place and it'll be, you know what, let's try something out of the box because what can happen if you say, you know what, let's try it. It can either work or it can't work, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Well, yeah, I mean, if they thought about that, if they thought like that, that'd be great. But like you said, it's a business, and they don't want to lose money, and they think they'll lose money behind a female fighter trying to promote it. Again, I love promoting female fighters, and I'm always arguing on social media about female fighters. Like you'll see, like nobody wants to see, nobody wants to see any females out there who can't fight or whatnot. And so I'm always arguing, well, who can you name as a female boxer right now? Clarissa Shields, besides Clarissa Shields,
Mm,
besides Layla Ali, give me someone else that you can, name. Do you know
mm.
who Katie Taylor, Marlene Esparza, Amanda Serrano, like all these girls are really, really good. And it's sad that no one can really see them. And a lot of these girls are going into MMA because of that. You have Amanda Serrano, world champion. She's now an MMA fighter. You had Heather Hardy. She was
Yes,
another WBC champion. She went into MMA. Now she
Bellator,
didn't. Yeah, she didn't do so well, but
unfortunately, yeah.
yeah, but that's just how it goes. That's just the name of the game. Again, if you're a world champion, you just can't come over here and just start fighting nobodies. you know
Well, that's one of the things. And if you are going to do that, I think it's proven based upon becoming a world champion. They knew and know what it takes to get there. It took a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and a length of time. So
yeah.
if you're going to transition into another sport, and this is by far the toughest sport, mixed martial arts is, I don't think there's anything else tougher out there apart from left way where it's, it's pretty much bare knuckle and you can headbutt. You know.
Well, Paige Van Zandt just
Um,
signed with bare knuckles.
okay, let's get into that. Let's get into that then, Lisa.
I mean, she just signed a multi-million-dollar deal with bare knuckles. I got to give it to Paige. She's great at promoting herself. That's the best marketing, to market yourself is yourself. And she's a walking billboard. And so, she says she makes more money on Instagram, on social media than she did in the UFC.
Yeah.
And she was going to sign with Bellator, but bare knuckles came in and gave her a multi-million-dollar deal that she couldn't turn down. Now, there's a lot of females that want to fight her.
I've seen the tweets.
Yeah. And like one of them is a 5-time world champion, WC world champion, Ava Knight. Ava, she's a boxer, but she now fights for Bellator. She's an MMA fighter, so she now wants to get in, and she's been tweeting bare knuckles, like, if you want to see a real fight.
Exactly, I've seen it. That's the one I've seen.
Yeah, and I don't think, I try to say that they're gonna feed her right now because now she is the pretty face of bare knuckles. But then I've had some arguments, some disagreements, saying, how can someone feed you in bare knuckles? It's bare knuckles. I said, oh, you can get fed in a lot of fights. Trust me, don't matter how harsh it is. People get fed fights. And she fought Beck Rollins in the UFC, and she knocked out Beck Rollins in UFC. Beck Rollins is signed to bare knuckles.
Exactly.
And
she's the champion, right?
Yeah, she is killing it right now. I think she's undefeated in bare knuckles, and so I would love to see them two meet in bare knuckles. My personal opinion, I think Beck would beat her
based upon the experience that she's got and when she's actually been doing it.
Yeah,
Paige is a good fighter. I don't think she's
scrappy. She's
exactly
scrappy.
very scrappy. I think she goes to the well one too many times with that judo throw constantly.
Yeah.
But she's, as you say, she's scrappy. She's got a lot of heart. But based upon the experience that Beck has, it will be a long night. It'll be a very long night.
It'd be a long night for her for those first probably 30 seconds. Because it doesn't take much. The way I'm looking at it, it doesn't take much to knock somebody out. And bare knuckles is for some people. Like, one of them is Johnny Bedford. He was an MMA fighter. He also was a former UFC fighter. Now he's a bare knuckles champion, and he found a home, and bare knuckles is his thing right now. And he has the experience. And just like, if you're not used to street fights, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yes.
And you go into bare knuckles, it's going to be shocking. It's going to be very, very. I know a person personally who fought in bare knuckles, and she was a pro boxer, someone that I fought too in the past. She went in there and she got stopped. She's used to 8-ounce gloves, and those bare knuckles is different.
It's very different.
And she fought an MMA fighter, a former UFC fighter.
Did she get stopped in the first round? Was it blood? She was very bloody.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I
think it was in the second round. Maybe.
Okay.
It might have been the second round, but yeah, you're not used to this. And bare knuckles is not for the weak.
It's not. It's a next level, and where's your guard? You've got no gloves, so like, what are you using for your guards? It's serious, very serious.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't do it. No matter how crazy I am, I wouldn't even do it. Bare knuckles came to me probably back in 2016, and they asked me if I wanted to fight, and I'm like, "Are you crazy?" Like. No.
Exactly, and I ain't messing up this face.
Right. No, I'm like, you crazy? No, no. I'm, and they were gonna pay good. Bare knuckles, they do pay very, very well, and Come to find,
how are they able to sustain themselves with all of these high profile signings that they do? And from what I'm hearing in regards to the
good investor.
viewership,
Yeah, I
okay.
think they have a really good investor
Mm.
backing them up. That's the only thing that I can think of. I mean, I'm not too sure. You know, they wanted to sign Clarissa Shields and Cyborg to a multi-million-dollar fight. Not a they were going to pay them both $1 million each to fight each other.
But they're two different weight classes?
Um, Clarissa's yeah, she's bigger than Cyborg.
Is she?
Yes, yes.
Oh,
Cyborg fights at 45,
145, but she walks around
145.
at like 160, 70, I would
Yeah,
say.
and Clarissa fights around that weight class, like in the 60s, 50s, 60s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but if they were to fight at, Cyborg would just be fighting at her walk around weight,
Yeah, yeah. Ooh,
and she has trouble in weight, so I don't think that'd be a problem.
it
But I've
wouldn't
seen,
be.
I've seen them spar. Cyborg and Clarissa
Yes.
Shields, they've done some sparring in the past, and
It
yeah,
looked competitive. It looked competitive from what was shown because that was prior to the Nunes fight, wasn't it?
yes, it was prior to Nunes, and I think Cyborg was trying to, just get some boxing for
Mm.
the Nunes fights. And, Clarissa, she said, she had to pull back some, during the sparring session.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So, but Cyborg's tough. She's a tough chick. And, Cyborg she wants to go into boxing. And I can see her doing good, only because she's going to have the right people promoting her. I can see her doing very well.
Yes, and well, I think technique will have to um, improve
Oh
going
yeah, definitely.
into the
Yeah,
boxing world.
definitely.
She's definitely got translatable power. That goes
Yeah,
without saying.
yeah.
Um,
She'll be your brawler fighter. Definitely, she'll
y-
brawl.
yeah. Well, she seems to be the last fight in Bellator. She was a lot more measured. A
Yeah,
lot more measured in that fight. And I think if she was that way, well, I know if she was that way in the Nunes fight, it could go either way, as we know, because it's an MMA fight. But we wouldn't have had that result if she became out a lot more measured and picked her shots, kind of thing.
I think she just wanted to hurry up and get done with Nunes because she knew what Nunes can do.
Mm,
So she just went out there. But Nunes is a very precise striker, and she knows how to use her reach. Nunes is one female that knows how to use her reach.
yes.
And she did that against Cyborg. But I think Cyborg transitioning into boxing, what happens is you're always going to go back to what you know, no
Hmm.
matter what. If you get in a situation, you're going to go back to what you know, what you first learned, and that is brawling.
Yes.
And I can see Cyborg, establishing her jab, trying to take her time, but then she's going to go coming out all crazy.
Exactly. Yeah.
I can see it. I can see it.
And she's in a good place. Actually, no, I was going to say she's in a good place. It's kickboxing Bellator too. They do kickboxing and MMA, don't they? They don't do boxing.
Yes. Hmm.
It'd be good if they could introduce that and work it into a contract because Scott Coker's pretty open in that respect by doing cross promotional fights, etc.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it'd be good to see her. I know I've seen her fight in a Muay Thai fight um, um, in the
Is that
past, and
the one she
that
lost?
the one that she lost, but
She's up.
she fought a girl that
Exactly.
had so many fights. She was so experienced, and
Had length as well.
and I had to give it to Cyborg because that was her pro debut, and she fought a girl that probably had 40 fights already you know as a fighter.
Hmm.
So I got to give it to Cyborg.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. She made an excellent showing for a professional debut. It's a pity we didn't see a second, third, fourth fight materialize. I think Cyborg's better when she's busier,
Yeah,
when she's fighting constantly. I mean, she's still in many people's eyes and in my eyes the greatest female MMA fighter based
yeah,
upon her legacy, what she's done, the record that she had. Amanda Nunes, he's very, very close second, a very, very close second. If she can continue to do what she's doing,
Man,
um,
Amanda's killing it right now. I like she took out Cyborg, she took out Rousey, she took out
home.
Chanchenko, Holmes.
Well,
I
wait,
mean,
wait, whoa. Let's officially, she beat, Chenko, twice. But I've
yeah,
watched them multiple times, and in my opinion, in my humble opinion, I would say at the worst you could score one as a draw, but one Shevchenko won. She won that fight hands down. I would say 3 rounds to 2. And I've heard the same thing. People say exactly the same thing. Um,
and you're probably saying it was probably the first fight that she probably everyone thought
yes.
because yeah, it was the first fight. I thought it
Hmm.
was a very, very close fight, to be honest.
Yes.
Yes,
I
I
think
thought it was a very close fight.
it'd be good. I mean, trilogies. We've got a trilogy coming up tonight. You know, some
Oh yeah. So what do you think? Who do you have? Do who do you got on the main events
main event.
tonight? You have Daniel.
Cormier,
Uh-huh.
Stipe Miocic. You see, I'm torn. I'm torn because DC is from Louisiana as well. That's one of the states I really enjoy the culture and music from. Um, he's an excellent personality. He's a really nice person. Never met him personally, but what is portrayed on camera and what people talk to me and say,
Yeah.
he's a real good guy. He's doing his coaching stuff. So all of that, because I won't go into the plethora of all the stuff he's doing,
Yeah.
I would like for him to win. Just emotionally wise, I would like for him to win. But being analytical, um,
If
I
you was
love.
a betting man, if you was a betting man,
If I was a betting man, in the UK, DC is the underdog, so I would bet on DC.
okay.
Um, I think based upon the first 2 fights and how Stipe is, I think Stipe is going to win this handedly unless DC does something not different, but is able to get in, establish his clinch, and do his dirty boxing and potentially emulate the first. But I just see Stipe is just all round. He's excellent. He can run backwards, and still do a check hook and knock somebody out like Vadu. Um, he's an all-round good fighter.
I'm pulling for DC only because he's the older fighter, and he wants his name to be in the books for the best fighter, the GOAT type thing. Leaving, you would want someone to win like that. I think if Daniel wants to win, if DC wants to win, that he should not strike with Stipe, and he should get inside, do some dirty boxing, get in the clinch, and take him down. He's very strong. His wrestling's very strong. So I think he should just outgrind him. And it might be a boring fight to a lot of fight fans, but I think DC should stick to what he knows best, and that's wrestling. Although he knocked him out, um,
Exactly.
or whatever, but I
He,
just think Stipe is he's gonna come out very strong and
mhm.
just gonna outstrike him. And I think Daniel DC, he stands very tall, I guess because he's only 5'11", and so when he strikes, he's very tall and straight,
Mm.
versus like right here like a boxer, where he should like as a wrestler, he stands very tall, so it makes him very easy to hit, someone like Stipe. So I just think he should just take him down.
You're right. You're right. And as you say, it might be a potentially boring fight, but this is mixed martial arts.
Right,
So it's not
right.
just about striking. It's not just about grappling, wrestling, submit. It's everything. So I think, as you say, stick to what you know, mix it up, of course, because that's the way you're going to get your takedowns and stuff. But that's going to be you're going to have to grind him out, grind him out. If he does that, fourth round, maybe fifth round, he could maybe grind him out and actually get the finish.
I think so. I don't think this fight goes off on 5 rounds.
No, not at all.
Mm-mm, no.
But I would say at the latest fifth round, but I would say fourth. It's gonna get come down to it the fourth. But with the quote unquote MMA gods,
Right.
we never
Right.
know. It could be a first. It could be a Henry Cejudo and Dominic Cruz affair.
Yeah, it could be.
Trustfully not, because we don't want
Yeah.
to see that.
No. Definitely not. Definitely not.
Okay, so what about O'Malley?
I like O'Malley. I mean, he's long, he's lanky. He's taken on Marlon Vera, I believe that's his name.
That's it, Vera, Mr. Vera
Yeah,
himself.
yeah. I like Sean O'Malley. He's very crafty, very, very crafty guy.
Mm.
What do you think?
Um, I think it's going to be a nice scrap. I think it's going to be a
Yeah,
very, very good scrap based upon O'Malley's last performance, the precision, the double feint, and ooh, if he can establish and keep that calmness, which is going to be very hard against Marlon,
yeah,
um, I still think it's going to be tough. I really do think it's still going to be tough for him.
yeah.
Um, I'm going to go with
You're gonna,
Vera.
you're gonna go with Vera. Yeah, I just
Yeah.
figured that. Figures out like you're going with Vera. Yeah,
Yeah, I've
yeah.
got to. I've got to. I mean, as you say, I do like Sean. I like his personality as well. His persona outside of the cage. I think it's kind of funky. Um, I just think it's a little bit too quick. A little bit too
Yeah.
quick. I think we should have had him fight one more time, especially because he's coming off a long injury, and then the tainted supplements thing and all that kind of silliness,
This is
which
true.
which is like, come on, UFC. I mean, we definitely want to clean the sport up. Look, I'm all for that. Yeah, there was a long period of time where people were on all kinds of substances taking, and I'm pretty sure there are people still doing certain things to enhance their whatever they need to enhance.
Oh
Look at
yeah, I
this
mean it's
guy.
definitely it's all about, I remember I was at a fight, um, at a Bellator fight actually, and I was in the back, and one of the guys that was there, he was, he was an older gentleman, and he was taking steroids, and he basically said that, you take steroids for so long, the timing on when to stop, when to start, when it'll get diluted, when it'll be out of your system, um, or whatnot. So, but in the UFC, they have the I guess they have USADA,
Yes.
and it's hard for them to know the timing
Hmm.
if you're on anything,
Hmm.
because they do show up um, at your place or where you train.
Hmm.
And with USADA, you got to tell them like all the places that you are. Like if you're going out of
Yes.
town, you got to email them and tell them, hey, I'm going here, or you're at your girlfriend's house, or you're somewhere. Hey, this is where my girlfriend lives. They'll pop up. They will do a
Mm.
pop up, and or they'll do a pop up while you're training. So yeah,
We've heard stories of a certain champion hiding, allegedly, let's in air quotes, allegedly
allegedly,
hiding
yeah,
under the ring because USADA turned up at the training facility.
yeah, yep.
I mean, what's your thought? I always bring this up, and because I'd like to get the finger on the pulse. Weight cutting and divisions. What are your thoughts?
You know, to be honest, people weight cut because they think it's an advantage. You're taller fighter. You want every advantage that you can get, right?
Hmm.
If you're the taller fighter fighting at a very low weight, you want to have that reach. You want to have that power. You want to have that speed. But to be honest, weight cutting, it is very, very, I don't think it's safe
Hmm.
in the long run. Because in the long run, with all that weight cutting that you're doing, sometimes you wind up losing 20 pounds, 30 pounds in a certain amount of time. Hell, I've done it. I've lost 15 pounds in 3 days. Um, Not the healthiest way, but you wind up suffering later down the road. Like once you're done, you're retired, you can suffer from a lot of stuff from weight cutting. And I just think that you shouldn't weight cut more than 20, 15 pounds. And if you have to do that, man, you change up your lifestyle. Um,
Mm.
I think you should fight. I don't think you should fight at your walk around weight, because everybody's walking around weight is enjoying food. You do want to be.
Well, Lisa, come on. If you're a fighter and you're going to be fighting, you say 3 or 4 times a year. Well, for a boxer, you're going to be trustfully fighting a lot more than that. For MMA fighters, it's 3, 4 times a year if they can get it. Now, if you're a professional fighter and your job is to fight 4 times a
Mhm.
year, then of course, you're going to enjoy your foods, and you should know your body and say, okay, out of this month, I can treat myself maybe 2 or 3 times.
But
Outside
that's
of
a
that,
difference. But that's a difference between a champion, someone who wants to fight. You know what I'm saying? That this
hmm
is their career, this is their life.
hmm
Um, yeah, you could do that. Yeah, you could be like, you know what? I'm not fighting here. I could probably indulge a little bit here, a little bit there. There's a lot of people that who are just coming up and killing themselves. And I guess I'm talking more about fighters that are at the beginning of their career,
yes,
and they don't understand so much of the weight cutting and all that stuff. Because I know back then when I used to do it, I didn't have a nutritionist. Hell, I thought cutting weight was not eating. So yeah, and
well, you
spit in
get
a
this.
cup and spit in a cup and in a sauna suit in 103-degree weather. And
Oh, yeah. I mean that, as you say, I
but
understand.
you know what? To each his own. To each his own. If you want to
Yes,
cut 20, 30 pounds and you're still strong and fast, hey, more power to you. I'm done weight cutting, so I
yeah,
enjoy my food. And
exactly. Yeah,
I just think if you're gonna weight cut, have your nutritionist, have the people behind you to help you, rehydrate. That you don't dehydrate and you pass out. I've done that before. So yeah, I just think it teaches on whatever they want to do.
definitely, definitely. Everyone has a choice. But
Hmm.
I think personally, if I was Uncle Dana, as he's referred to as, I would scrap all of this silliness. I'd say, you know what, as a 21 coming up, we're going to add a 165 weight division. Pardon me. It's down to you. If you want to move up, move up. If you think you can stay at this weight, we're going to have hydration tests. We're going to put some kind of measures in place to make sure that you're not cutting more than, let's say, 10 pounds either way, going up or going down. We want you
Yeah.
to be safe. We want you to be happy. We've got all of this PI, we've got all this fancy PI stuff, and we've got people who can give you diet plans. We've invested millions into that. Use it, guys. We want you to be healthy. We want the best fights, and let's see what happens.
Well, you know what? One thing I don't like about the MMA weight class is they don't have like boxing weight classes. You know, the MMA weight classes are 10 pounds, difference.
Hmm.
You go from 115, you got your 125s, 135, 145, 155. In
Yes.
boxing, you don't have that. It's like a 3 pound difference, and you're in a whole different weight class. And you got 122, 125, 26, 30, 32, 35.
Wow.
Um, I just think, to be honest, maybe MMA should add um, a new weight class, especially in the heavyweight division. In boxing, like, 200 pounds, 199, that's considered heavyweight. And
Mm.
And in heavyweight in the UFC, I mean, the cap is 265.
265 exactly.
265. So you could fight at 206 to 265.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
it is. It
Very
is.
crazy. And yeah, there
It,
should be there should be a weight class for a heavyweight. There should be a you know
super heavyweight, if anything.
super heavyweight, heavyweight, light heavyweight.
Mm.
There should be three classes there because, man, those are some big boys, some very big boys.
Very, and they can cause a lot of damage, i.e. CTE. And
Yeah,
there's a
yeah,
lot of victims of that walking around, ex-UFC, Bellator, One Championship, you name it. We can go down the roster. Loads of those people walking around. Some of them are quite coherent to a point. Others, it's shocking.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I just think they should just add, a weight class in between those 10 pounds. If just to be safe, just on the safe side. You know what I'm saying?
I guess I've heard the argument that it would dilute the sport if they have too many champions, but I kind of totally disagree. Because I mean, one championship isn't necessarily the beacon for this argument. I think they're having some financial difficulties. But look how many champions they've got, and look how many different types of sports that they're doing over there.
Yeah.
Kickboxing, Muay Thai. I couldn't even. I think there's about what 16 different champions.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna tell you like that. Nothing worse than boxing champions. There's so many different champions, so many different weight classes, so many different titles. Um, um, yeah, boxing's for the worst when it comes to that.
That's why that's why you can be draped in like 12 belts and stuff. And
You got ABO, WBC, IBF. I mean, Texas. You even got a Texas title champion. WBC, like, oh my God, there's just so many belts that you could win, and it's crazy. At any weight class, you can go to 112, 115, 116. It's crazy.
what is the oldest? What is the sort of the lineal sort of champ? Is it WBA?
WBC, the belt that everyone wants and
Okay.
that's more recognizable, and the one that says, "Oh yeah, he's a champ, he's a for real champion," is a WBC.
Okay. And currently, is that's Tyson who's got that, I take it, right? Or is that Josh?
Tyson does have a WBC champion, does hold a WBC belt. Even Roy Jones, a lot of the top fighters right now that are in boxing has a WBC belt.
Okay.
But speaking of Tyson and Roy Jones,
Yes, nice segue. That's you read it. You read my mind.
I mean, come on, what is your take? I mean, first let me ask you a question.
Mhm.
Who do you got, Tyson or Jones, and
Uh,
why?
okay. Again, I'll answer it in two ways. One with my heart, and it would be Tyson, because growing up, in England, that was, one
Hmm.
of the main things you'd stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning to watch and stuff, and you were allowed to as a child. Um, just his style, the ferociousness and everything about Mike Tyson, it
Hmm.
makes me want him to recapture that kind of imagery and that success, and
Yeah.
rather than the tail end of his career, which I didn't even know about until I started to really look of what happened to Mike Tyson after, kind of thing. And I started to see, like, was his last fight in Australia?
Mike Tyson, his
Yeah.
last fight was back in 2006, I believe, 14 years ago.
Hmm. So from that respect, heart wise, I'd love Tyson to win, but I also found out shortly after Tyson about Roy Jones and started looking at his career and stuff, and I was just totally blown away. And he had his musical career as well with his record label and stuff. I was just like, wow, this guy is really doing it, and how he got robbed at the Olympics and stuff. And
Hmm.
so it's from a nostalgic point, it would be Mike Tyson. But looking at what Roy Jones Jr. has done and is capable of doing, I think Roy Jones should win this. But here's a very big but, and it's a large one with no silicone or anything else in there. There's some crazy rule set, isn't there? This is supposed to be some kind of exhibition, and then
it's an exhibition that doesn't go against your record, yeah. But they are gonna. It's no headgear. I think it's 12 ounce, 10 ounce, 12 ounce gloves. So it's like a real fight, because usually when you're doing an exhibition, you do have to wear headgear
okay. So,
and you wear bigger gloves. But in this case, they're not doing it.
but there no headgear, but it is slightly 2 ounce bigger gloves, right?
Mhm.
And hasn't there been talk about them not going crazy or something?
That's the talk right now. But my writer interviewed Roy Jones when he came here to Dallas,
Hmm.
and Mike Tyson, he's putting out there like it's a fight. Like, this is not an exhibition. To him, this is a fight. And he says Roy needs to come ready and not dance around if he gets in the ring with him. So Mike Tyson, Mike Tyson thinks it's a fight. Roy thinks it's an exhibition. So, but when we interviewed Roy Jones, Roy's like, "Hey man, it's a fight for me. I'm not going in there to dance around or anything. It's a fight." My personal opinion, everybody thinks that Mike Tyson's going to win because in their mind they have old Mike Tyson.
Yes.
And so the knockout, the peekaboo style, get in there, knock their opponent out within the first round. That's what everybody has.
Yeah.
And that's the last thing they see of, Tyson. So they expect Tyson to be the same way. But Jones, on the other hand, like I said, Tyson hasn't fought in 14 years. And Jones, his last fight was in 2018. And he's fought every year, 17,
Yes.
16, 15, 14. And so he's fought in exhibitions. He's had fights. Of course, his fights are out the country, but he's active. And there probably won't be any ring rust. Jones is, he's currently active. He gets in there, spars his fighters. He trains guys, till this very day. And Jones has always been active. Now you see that Tyson, he put on a lot of weight. He's out there smoking, living life, which is great. And then he decides to get back into shape. And 14 years not to be in the ring is a very long time, regardless of who you are or what type, the baddest man on the planet. You know what I'm saying? 14 years is a long time. And if you're a fighter and you haven't trained in a month, 2 months,
Of
or
course.
even sparred in a year, your rhythm's off.
Totally.
You don't have to be in a training for a month and you go spar, your rhythm's off. And so you can imagine not being in the ring for 14 years, no matter how good you look. And in the mitts, he looks awesome on the mitts. He looks strong, fast, ferocious. His favorite word, I'm ferocious. He looks all that on the mitts. But I want to see what it looks like in the ring with someone who's, still active.
Yes.
That's a difference. I don't count Roy out. I love Mike Tyson. I still have old Mike Tyson in my head. Like, he's going to come in there, throw that left hook, that uppercut, his favorite combination, goes into southpaw, right hook to the body, left hook, hook. Uppercut, left hook. I have that in my head. But Jones, man, that dude is good. He's still fast. He still can move. Yes, he's put on weight because he's older. Does he move like he was when he 15 years ago, 10 years? No, he doesn't. It's like riding a bicycle again. It's going to be like that for Mike and him. But again, 14 years is 14 years.
Very true.
14 years versus 2 years. And who doesn't, and who can't, and even though Jones hadn't fought, his last fight was in 2018. Has he been sparring? I'm sure he has, because he has fighters that he trains, and he's a promoter. Jones has always been in the fight game, and he's never left.
Exactly.
So Tyson, on the other hand, he was gone. He was gone, and he didn't want to come back. And he want nothing to do with boxing because of the type of person he was, and who he became as a fighter. I love Mike Tyson. I'm a huge Mike Tyson fan, and
Yes.
I would love to see the old Mike Tyson in there. But are we really going to see that? That's the question.
No, I think we're definitely not going to see it at the old Mike Tyson. I think we can 100%, you know that straight away because so much time has elapsed. Um, I think we're going to see glimmers of it, but we're going
Maybe
to,
the very beginning, the
yes.
very beginning, you're going to see that old Mike Tyson, but then it's going to wear off.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's just my non-expert opinion. I want to put it out there, my non-expert opinion.
No, I
I
think
could be wrong.
well, this is what it's all about. It's up to Mike Tyson and Roy Jones to shock the world, to surprise and shock themselves, and to say, look, this is what I'm capable of doing. Um, it's going to be exciting. When I first saw the flyer, Lisa, I was
Uh-huh.
disappointed.
Were you?
Yeah, I was disappointed. I thought that Mike Tyson was in a good place. I didn't think now I don't know this. I'm surmising. For me to see this, because based upon all of the previous interviews, he's like, boxing is so far out of my life. I don't want anything to do with it. I'm in a different kind of,
Exactly. Like I said earlier,
yeah,
yeah, want nothing to do with boxing.
nothing whatsoever. And then all of a sudden to say, yep, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it against someone who I should have fought when I was in my prime, when both of us was in our prime, and I'm going to do this. So it's for me, age and what I've just relayed. I just thought this is clearly a money grab, not only for them but for to the people putting it together. But I just think it could have just been done a lot sooner. If they wanted to do this, this could have been done, even maybe 5 years ago, possibly. Um, but upon reflection and seeing the videos, I mean, I saw the Mike Tyson training prior to this. Um, I thought, it's good, get your money, put on a good event, a good fight, and trustfully nobody gets long-lasting injuries or effects of the fight moving forward. That's the only good thing I can wish to happen as an outcome.
Yeah, definitely. But like I said, um, even if it was 5 years ago, Roy was still fighting.
Yes.
he, he was still fighting, and you knock off, 9, and if they would have fought 5 years ago, it would have been 9 years that he hasn't fought. And Mike Tyson, in those 14 years that he hasn't fought, he hasn't really done nothing as far as boxing goes. I mean, he's mentioned it in plenty of interviews that he doesn't really watch it anymore, is not into it. I'm just kind of curious why he chose Roy Jones of everyone, because right now he could have chose Holyfield. You see Holyfield, he's just in tip-top shape as
Oh,
well.
yeah, another
And
legend.
I thought that would have been like a better fight for Tyson, a more level playing
Um,
field for me,
ye-
to me personally, just
mm.
because Holyfield hasn't fought in forever as well. And they're both two guys that fought in the past. And
You say with a big smile on your face.
because I was thinking about the ear.
Yeah, me too. As soon as I think of that fight, that's all I think of, unfortunately. I don't know. Did Mike actually explain all of that? He did say he was headbutting them or something like that, but
Yeah, he said he was getting tired of getting hit by Holyfield, and he kept telling the referee, and the referee wasn't doing anything about it. But I think also too, I think Tyson was losing
he was
as well.
losing,
He was
clearly.
he was getting frustrated with Holyfield. And I think Holyfield was doing a lot of manhandling, a lot of dirty boxing, and Tyson just got mad and bit him, and that's exactly what he said. And it's crazy because I interviewed Holyfield last year because his son fights, and it was in
Oh,
Houston,
yes.
and his son was fighting, and I got to interview Holyfield. And at one point, I kind of forgot what I was asking him because I was staring at his ear. I was like, I was like, oh, and stuff. But yeah, I thought that fight would have been a good fight to watch. But
You know,
I guess the excitement, if with Jones and Tyson, is because they never fought, and
yes.
it was a fight that should have happened,
Mm,
and in their prime. So I think that's where the excitement's at, and I think the excitement is, you got a boxer, the sweet science of boxing
yes.
versus Tyson, who's I will call Tyson a boxer puncher. Um, I think this is going to be still a Christmas gift to us, no matter
Yes.
how old they are.
Hmm.
This is a fantasy fight that we've always wanted to watch, and here we are in their 50s.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, you know what? I mean, let's get the old crystal ball out. I mean, let's say that on that day, Tyson comes out and he looks tremendous, and he takes out Roy Jones within the first, let's say, 4 rounds. He's done in 4 rounds. As you just laid out, that could be the next fight. Mike Tyson takes on Holyfield. You know, obviously Mike Tyson's been out, but he had the one fight. There's a little bit of difference, but we could still build the same kind of, the long in the tooth of sorts. No disrespect, but look, Tyson's come out. He's just beat Roy Jones. They've never fought before. We've had a controversial, ear biting situation. Let's run that back.
Um, to be honest, I'm gonna be honest. I don't want to see that fight. To be honest, because I've already seen it twice, and yeah, and also I forgot. I forgot to mention too. They're going 8 rounds.
8. I thought it was 10.
No, they're going 8 rounds, not 10. Thank God they're not doing 10.
Hmm.
They're going 8 rounds, but still 8 rounds is 8 rounds
Yeah,
in
yeah,
14 years.
yeah. I guess I think that would be more on in Tyson's favor to shorten it down to 8 rounds.
That too, but I thought maybe exhibition it should have been a 6.
True, true.
Especially they're older,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
They're older, and Tyson hasn't fought in 14 years, and I think a 6 rounder would have been great because I think Tyson is going to get tired in the later rounds after 4 rounds. I think Tyson will get tired or
Well,
whatever, and
if
and
there's a
I also think Jones, he's going to dance. Jones loves to dance, and he's going to pick shot him and flick his jab. Jones do what Jones do, and Tyson, he's the pickable who likes the aggressor. And I think if I was Jones fighting Tyson, again, I'm going to reiterate that he hasn't fought in 14 years. I would dance
yes,
the first few rounds for like 3-4 rounds and make Tyson come to me and make him tired trying to follow me.
mm,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
And just pop him with just jabs. Because Roy does have a very long reach. And I would just jab straight 1-2, very basic 1-2, just to keep him at the end of his
mm.
punch.
Use
And
the real estate.
huh?
Use the real estate.
Yeah.
How about this for a crazy one? Another fight that in Mike Tyson's prime, Bob Sapp. Do you remember when that was supposed to take place?
Man.
Mr. Take a Dive, I think he's known as today, isn't he?
Tyson would have murdered Sapp. Like, come on. Like, he might be good. He might be popular in Japan or whatever, but come on, let's be real. Bob Sapp
It's
is
a
not
money
fighting.
grab. It's a money grab. Come on, Lisa. That's easy money, man.
Man, I mean, I guess Bob Sapp probably would have just got hit with the wind and
Yes, went straight down.
yeah,
Unconscious. Out on a
yeah,
stretcher.
probably, you know, in a convulsion or something. I don't know, to do extra. But Bob Sapp, come on.
I just thought about it because for some reason when I was talking about Holyfield for a potential third. For some reason, that promo just popped into my head when he was in the ring and they were shoving each other and stuff. I was like, oh shit, Bob Sapp, what about that crazy lunatic?
Yeah, yeah. Bob Sapp's that he could stay over there and entertain, you know, that side of
Yes,
the world.
totally. So, you've got some on that card taking place? You've got someone fighting on that card, haven't you?
Yeah, I got my boyfriend.
Well,
He's
hey.
he's fighting on that card November 28th, and he's fighting Vidal. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. Vidal Riley. I know his last name is Riley. He's 4-0, and he, of course, he's the younger, supposedly on, you know, on paper, the younger, faster fighter. And Rashad Coulter, you know, he's also 4-0. So somebody's old, gotta go. You know that saying.
Yes.
And he has 3 knockouts. And I think, you know, I have one of his fights on my YouTube channel, and I have a lot of his followers, you know, commenting on his boxing fight that I uploaded. And like I said, you know, this guy, he's a YouTube sensation or whatever, but he, you know, he fought 4 times and he's undefeated as well. But I guess because my boyfriend, I think in BoxRec they have he has two uh, BoxRecs for some reason, because his actual name is Orlando. So they have it Orlando and they have Rashad.
Okay.
And I think when you pull up Orlando, it shows 1-0. And if you pull up Rashad, it shows 4-0. So they think he only has one fight or
Ah.
whatever. So they're thinking, oh, he only has one fight, 1-0, you know, and
Deceptive confidence.
yeah. And so, and I think his last fight, Rashad's last fight, I think it was in 2016, right before he got signed in the UFC. He fought a national champion who made his pro debut that day, and who had like maybe over 100 amateur fights, and he was making his pro debut, and he wound up knocking him out. So
You've
yeah.
mentioned, let me just cut in there, Lisa, for one moment. You've mentioned twice now a very staggering, to me at least, high number of amateur fights. You said the young lady had 60 amateur fights before she made her pro debut, and then this gentleman had 100. Is this like standard? I mean, do people like, well, that seems like a lot of flipping fights before turning pro.
Well, let me. In boxing, you can start fighting at the age of 8 years old.
Oh, oh, okay.
So
Oh,
you can meet a 10-year-old with probably 30 fights.
okay. So at that age, like, what is the duration of the rounds and how many rounds are they going?
It depends if you're as an amateur, you're either a novice fighter,
Hmm.
who has 10 fights or less. They're 1-minute rounds, and you go 3 fights. You go 3 rounds, 3 1-minute rounds.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
but you know, when you become open, which means open is 10 fights or more, and depending on your age as well, there's the big boy open, which is 16 and up, 17 and up. I'm sorry, 17 and up, where you can fight anywhere from 17 to 36 years old.
What? That's a huge age range.
Yeah, it is. It is. So, you know, kids start off fighting at 8 years old, and you can wind up having, you know, 100, 200 fights. Lomachenko had a lot of fights, you know, and a lot of the old school fighters, like one of my boxing coaches, he had 300, 400 fights. Mayweather had a lot of amateur fights as well. It's because you start off at the age of 8. You can start
Yeah.
fighting at 8 years old.
And then I guess you've got the headgear on as well in all of these amateur competitions.
Yeah, headgear, you got headgear, and then the boxing gloves are bigger.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that answers a lot of questions. I'm thinking, how on earth are you able to uh, amount to 100 flipping fights? But obviously, if there's starting from 8, then it's quite easy, I guess, to
Yeah, you know, if you could, even fighting at 10 years old, 13 years old. I mean, back, there's tournaments every weekend somewhere in this world, and so just fight,
Yes.
you
So
travel, you fight.
so back to Rashad then. What was you saying about Rashad? Sorry, I cut into.
Yeah, yeah, he's 4-0, and people think he's 1-0, and he's the underdog in this fight because he's older, and they think he's an MMA fighter.
Okay.
But I mean, he is. His whole career is being an MMA. But, he's training very hard right now. He's training with boxers, pro boxers,
Mm.
right now who are undefeated and very, very good. So, we have a good training camp going right now for him to prepare, for the November fight, which is even better for him.
Mm.
Gives him more
More
time to.
time. Great. And how do you see it playing out? Let me give me some predictions on that event.
Personally, not just because he's my boyfriend.
Well,
I
no,
think,
no. Obviously, I know you're gonna say that. You know what?
yeah.
What girlfriend would you be if you wasn't to say that? But putting your analytical head on and based upon what you've seen, is this a?
Um, to be honest, I've seen Riley's fights.
Mhm.
Riley's he's a um, he likes to wait, and and he's not as fast as every all his followers saying that he is,
Okay.
and so he's a counter puncher,
Counter. Yeah. Yeah.
and I think he's going to be very shocked without giving so much details of how the fight's going
Oh,
to
of
play.
course. Of course. Yeah.
But I think Riley's going to be very shocked of Rashad's power
Mm.
and his skill, just because he thinks he's uh, uh,
This
MMA.
this guy is just an MMA fighter.
Yeah,
I'm gonna wipe the floor with him.
and to be honest, that's how boxers think, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm fighting an MMA fighter. Oh, I'm fighting a striker, and I've seen a lot of MMA fighters wind up beating,
Yeah.
boxers. So it's different. They go 5 minutes versus
Mm.
3 minutes, and like, but like I keep it. I'm very honest with Rashad, and I say, boxing is totally different from MMA,
Mm.
and it's nonstop, and there's not a stopping point. And you can't use and he knows this because he has 4 fights
Yes.
or whatever. But I mean, he knows this, and he knows what he's going into. He's the underdog. He's the underdog. He's the opponent, obviously, on this card. But I just think that he's gonna shock Riley and his followers, his fans. It's not gonna be as easy as he think he is, since he's you know
Definitely. I think, trustfully, not trying to jinx Rashad or nothing, but trustfully, they've done appropriate homework and not just bloody looked at a website and saw a 1-0, record and not done their due diligence to really understand that, actually, this guy is 4-0 and he's an ex-MMA fighter.
yeah, I think because there's no boxing fights he
Mhm.
has uploaded. Um,
Ah,
yeah, so the one boxing fight they have is under my Global Fight Talk page,
yes.
and I was there and I saw that. I was there at that fight, so that's the only fight that you can see as a boxing fight. So that's probably why they think 1-0 and that one boxing fight
Hmm.
or whatnot. So his other fights are not uploaded
Yeah.
or whatnot. So all the fights that they have seen are all his MMA fights.
This is going to be interesting. I'm
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to, based upon the backstory of this now, I'm quite interested to see how this plays out.
But if you were to Google him and you saw his fights in the UFC, you would think he was a straight brawler looking for that one knockout punch,
Mm,
because those are his fights. They're exciting,
yes.
crazy fights. Um, but this is boxing, you know, and me being in the game for so long, you know, I'm always in his head.
Mm.
I'm always gotta work that jab. It's gonna be bait, you know, do this, do that, you know, whatever.
Yes.
I try, you know, I'm not your typical the girlfriend like, oh my God. No. Tell it as it is.
Well, not with your experience and background, you're definitely going to be a motivating factor and inspiration behind him. I think it's, he's got the best of both worlds by having your experience and having you there as a secondary support system.
Yeah. I'm excited. You know, he has great boxing coaches. So I'm excited for that. Um, you know, he's working hard, and it's going to be, I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see him back. You know, I love boxing. Boxing is my sport that I will always be in love with,
Yes.
whatnot. So I'm a huge boxing fan. So I'm excited to see him in the ring, actually. And I really am excited to see that he's going to shock his opponents.
Yes.
That's what I'm more excited about. I'm excited that I really believe he's going to shock his opponent.
Mm. And how has it been obviously with this global situation that's taking place? How has it been training wise? Because I know, you know,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah, no, he's doing, you know, he does what he does when he can. Like I said, you know, he's now in training camp, and he has two boxers that he's sparring with, and he's doing what he can under this pandemic. So yeah.
Mm. So is he able to actually train at gyms, or is he having to do it outside of the normal routine?
No, well, you know, boxers, they train anywhere.
Oh, yeah,
Just
yeah,
give them a backyard
of course.
and
No,
they'll train back there. You know, old school ways.
exactly.
But yeah, no, he also trains at Fortis MMA. There's a lot of UFC fighters
Oh
that
yeah.
Fortis. You got Uriah Hall, Jeff
Mm,
Neal,
mm.
Ryan Spann. You got Macy, Chason, Beck. You have them. A lot of those fighters at Fortis MMA. So that's where he trains out of. So
Where
he
does Derek train out of?
Derek Lewis is
Yeah.
in Houston. He's in Houston.
That's
Out of
obviously, I
Houston.
know Texas is a gigantic place and can swallow the UK up maybe 10 times. So I take it, was it a couple hours distance away from y'all?
4 hours.
4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't expect it to be that big of a traveling distance.
Yeah. No, Texas is pretty big.
It's yeah, it's the great state, the Lone Star State. Okay. Okay. I forgot to ask you this at the start. With your last name, um, Lozano,
Mm-hmm.
what's your heritage? Where does your heritage lie?
I am Mexican.
Okay.
Yeah, I am Mexican. Lozano is an Italian last name,
Ah.
and I guess my grandfather, before he passed away, he was doing like a tree, whatever, DNA, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The ancestral thing.
Yeah, that, and it came like our last name is all the way from, you know, it's Italy, Italian. So do I claim it? No.
You're Mexicano.
Yo soy mexicana.
Excellent. Well, Texas is got a quite it's quite rich with Mexican culture and stuff. Like El Paso, for instance. There's loads of
Yeah, Paso, San Antonio.
yeah, San Antonio.
Yeah, yeah, like all those states. West Texas, where I'm from originally, it's predominantly Hispanic. So yeah.
That was post the Louisiana Purchase, wasn't it? All of that took
Hmm.
place.
Hmm. Hmm.
That was an interesting part of history. I had no idea about. I had no idea about, how big Mexico was prior to.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Okay, so it has been fun. Have you had fun?
I had fun. I love talking about fights. That's what I do. So yeah, I have fun. I love talking about. I love talking about boxing. To be honest, that's my background. But I love MMA just as well. And so yeah, I just anything that has to do with fights, I could just talk and talk and talk.
Excellent. And I have one more question for you. One more. Very last one even. Um, who are you? And don't tell me your name.
Who am I?
Yes.
I'm kind of confused.
So, if you was to describe yourself, what attributes would you assign?
If I were to describe myself, I would say I'm just a lover and a huge fight fan that has a for its passion for fighters that doesn't know the business. And I will forever, ever be involved in the fight game, no matter what it is, whether I'm teaching it, whether I can't say if I'm fighting in it, but if I'm talking about it, writing about it, giving my experience to someone else, I just love the fight game. And I will forever be in love with it.
So, fighting is in your spirit and your soul.
It's in my sangre.
Most definitely.
Actually, I'm gonna tell you like this before, your last question. Boxing, fighting for me has saved my life in so many different ways. And a lot of people say, "Why do you fight?" or "Why did you even start?" It saved my life. And I didn't start out fighting or thought about, "Oh, I want to fight because I want to be a world champion." It actually really saved my life. And I think because it saved my life, it's like I almost want to give back to it. And that's why I do what I do. I talk about it, I write about it, interviews, or whatever. I have a love and hate relationship with fighting, with the
So,
fight game.
so when you say it saved your life, are you saying that maybe prior to you falling in love and actually doing physically fighting in a ring, you were on a different path that may have led you somewhere else?
No, actually, I was in a very abusive relationship when during that time of fighting, and I was very depressed
Mm.
and very suicidal at that time. And I found an outlet. And fighting for me, when I found that outlet, when you're training, you don't think about what's going on in your life. You don't think about all the downfall that you're going through. You're just focused on training. And so anytime that I get in a situation where I fall back into depression, I'm like, oh, I need to fight again. I need to fight again. I need to have a fight, because that was my drug. That was my outlet.
Mm.
It gave me freedom when I was fighting. So when I came out of my depression and all this other stuff, I didn't have to fight anymore because I didn't need it. It did what it needed to do for me at that time in my lowest point in my life. So now I just talk about it.
It gave you an
It gave,
alternative. It gave you a purpose and focus.
yeah,
Excellent. And I,
yeah.
I, I, I get a greater sense of that now. Now, you've said that, and especially about imparting the information and giving the knowledge to the up and coming fighters, so potentially they don't make the mistakes, and they can have a trustfully have receipt of better options, because life is all about having options, having the right set of options laid out in front of you, rather than hastily maybe making decisions, or making decisions based upon somebody giving you incorrect information.
Well, a lot of these fighters that I know personally grew up in a bad, they had bad childhoods, and some were very abusive. Some, they don't have their parents. There were foster care kids or whatnot, and they find an outlet in boxing. Boxing, they say it's the poor man's sport, right? A lot of the people that are fighting, come don't come, they don't have money, and so that's why they call it the poor man's sport. And a lot of these kids that don't have a father figure, or they had an abusive, they saw their mom getting abused or whatever, and sometimes wind up making bad choices in their boxing career, because they don't have anyone, they don't trust anyone, they can't talk to anyone. And I've seen it firsthand, um, when kids are coming up and wanting to fight. And, I always try to give as much advice and stuff that I've been through and what I experienced. I try to give back as much as I can.
Excellent. Well, it has been an honor and a pleasure conversing with you today.
Yeah, same.
Um, what is the best way for people to contact you, social media wise? Please advise.
Yeah, well, me, my personal Lisa Lozano, it's private. I don't really, accept anyone personally if I don't know you. But you can also, if you really want to keep up with me, and you can follow my media page, Global Fight Talk. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, or even on YouTube. So, I mean, we're on all social media platforms. So it's Global Fight Talk. I don't know if you can see my shirt. There you go.
There we go.
There you
That's it.
go.
That's
Yeah,
it. We see
yeah.
the hoodie, yeah. And what I will
Global
do,
Fight Talk. So yeah, if you guys follow us, we talk about MMA and boxing. So, and we
e-
make, and we love memes. So I'm always putting out memes.
exactly, the memes, and most importantly, the interviews. You have some quality interviews as well. So
Yeah.
um, I will include all links to the social media and to your website below. Thank you very much again. Enjoy and peace.
All right. Thank you.